Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back for another episode. Just got off the Peloton. My brain is ready to go. Watch some NBA basketball tonight. I'm excited that it's back. It's good to have, games every night where we can watch basketball, maybe 2-3 games a night. On tonight's show, we're going to talk a little bit about the All-Star weekend. I'm going to give you guys some crazy scenarios of what I think could change in the NBA. Don't see it happening, but could change. Is Lonzo Ball out shooting Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, and LeBron? We'll talk about that a little bit later on the show. We'll talk about some new basketball shows that have just aired recently that I'm really into. PJ Tucker wants out. What is that about? But first, let's talk about NBA All-Star Weekend, which I thought was a success for the most part. This year with no fans, a lot of players thought there wasn't going to be an All-Star game, but there was. And I thought the NBA did a pretty good job of making it happen for the fans, giving the fans something to see. And it's honestly one of those things about an All-Star game where you have so much talent on the floor that you just kind of love to see these scenarios play out. We had the slam dunk contest, which I thought was a major... I want to be nice, but it wasn't great. It really wasn't. It's one of those things that I think we could have invited some YouTube dunkers, and I think it would have been better. But on short notice, one of the dunkers didn't have a dunk in a game, and I think he ended up winning. Simons ended up winning. He had a cool dunk. He was supposed to kiss the rim. And in an All-Star game, I feel like you got to break the tooth or put it in a mouth guard. Go kiss the rim. He tried to kiss the rim. Obi Toppin was he didn't have great dunks, to be honest with you. I've seen better dunks in layup lines. And then Stanley, I think they hurt him at the beginning. I think that first score, he had a great opening dunk, and he didn't get a very great score for whatever reason. And I feel like that happens a lot in All-Star games, but I don't know. And the skills challenge, the big guys won. Sabonis ended up winning. He beat Nikolai from the Orlando Magic, and the big guys showed up. They were ready to play. Luka was too cool for school. I think he got eliminated in the first round. Chris Paul didn't make the three, and if you listen to my show earlier, I said whoever hits that three-pointer ends up winning. And then the three-point contest, he put on an absolute clinic. If you didn't watch that, I want you to go YouTube it. Go watch it. Steph Curry was unbelievable. He scored 31 points. It is absolutely... He got into a rhythm where he didn't miss for 3 straight racks. That was so impressive. It's like a video game. There's also videos of him. If you're bored one day, just look up videos of Steph Curry shooting 3-pointers. It's absolutely insane. He goes, the Golden State Warriors tweeted out something about a couple weeks ago where he goes about 5 or 6 minutes. Doesn't miss. Absolutely insane. But then the All-Star game. The All-Star game, I predicted that Team Durant would win because the reserves would play more. And I was wrong. And I was right. The reserves did play more. LeBron played, I think, 14 minutes, 13 minutes, missed an easy dunk, and I was like, okay, yeah, he's not here to play tonight. He had a nice reverse dunk, and he kind of mailed it in and didn't play the second half. He had running shoes on, which as a Laker fan and all the Laker fans out there, you want to see that. You don't want him playing in a game like that. That really doesn't have any meaning. And then Steph Curry and Damian Lillard. I want to talk a little bit about that. They put an absolute clinic on. These are two guys. First of all, Damian Lillard didn't start, and I feel like he's one of those guys. He's an Oakland guy. He's tough, chip on their shoulder type guys. He doesn't really get the respect he deserves. And Steph had some good threes. Steph came to play, and you could see Dame kind of slow clapping on the sideline. And I might be blowing this up, but that's my job, is to blow things up, get meetings out of not much. That's what we do in the media, right? But you see Dame and Steph kind of going at it, right? You see one of them shoot from half court, and then you see another one shoot from, actually, one of them started from, a deep three. And then one of them got a little bit deeper of a three. And then the next possession, I think Dame pulls up from half court. Steph pulls up from like a foot inside the half court. And then Dame pulls up from half court. It's something. And Dame earlier this week, beat Steph Curry in a tough shot. And it was one of those calls that Draymond Green got called for a charge. And I'm just trying to make a little beef out of this. I don't know if any of you guys else saw that. And it was interesting to see, because Damian and Steph, at the end of the day, they were, high-fiving, and it's cool to see that. But only in an All-Star game can we see, first of all, like I said, Damian Lillard didn't start. And then James Harden didn't start. James Harden is in an MVP race and didn't start. Think about how talented of a field it has to be where an MVP of the season doesn't start. That's special. The NBA, there's so much talent, so much young talent too. And it's crazy to see it. It's just crazy to see it. And then we saw Kyrie. I don't know if you guys noticed, Kyrie was playing really, really. I thought he was playing a lot harder. He was playing harder than anybody else on the court. I don't know if anybody else caught that, because he's different in the nicest way possible. He shows up with a walking stick, and I don't mind that. I mean, if that's fast, I don't know if it's a fashion statement or if it's what he believes in. I don't know, and I don't want to get too much involved in a walking stick. But that's kind of, Kyrie's just different. But he looked like he was playing a little bit harder than everybody. And then we saw. Can we talk about this for a little bit? LeBron James is 4-0 as a captain. That's another thing he has up on Michael Jordan. I'm just kidding. Kidding. All you Michael Jordan people, calm down. I'm kidding. He's 4-0, but I mean, he's 4-0 as a captain. He's a good. Is this going to make him a better GM or a better owner down the line? Hey, I guess only time will tell. But he's 4-0, and he almost drafts his team a little bit like playmakers. And you could see when they were drafting, KD was kind of drafting guys as kind of like I don't know how KD was drafting. It was kind of weird. But LeBron was kind of making playmakers. I mean, it's weird. It's hard to say that all of these guys aren't playmakers because they're all all-stars. They're all basically the best players on their team. And to Team Durant's defense, Simmons and Embiid didn't play because of COVID protocol, and they didn't play tonight either. So that's something to look at. And that was a huge loss for them. Obviously, Joel Embiid, he would have dominated. And then Giannis ended up winning the MVP. And Giannis, I think he went perfect, and he shot a couple of threes. I know he was getting easy dunks in an All-Star game. If you watch an All-Star game, dunks are probably the easiest shot you get in a game, in an All-Star game, because no one really runs until maybe like the fourth quarter. And he was just getting easy dunks at the rim. He was beating guys down the court. And Rudy Gobert, I'll talk about Rudy here in a second. But let me talk about Giannis. He ended up winning MVP. And he was perfect from the field, because he was only dunking the ball with no one within 5 feet. And then he pulled up from three like 2 or 3 times. And you could hear Reggie Miller and C-Web kind of going, no, don't shoot it. and he shot him, and he banked two of them. He banked two of them to his defense, and he made them. So you can't really knock him. That doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Him banking them. I'm sorry. And I thought that was funny. The All-Star Game is so cool. It's one of the coolest events. You see all this talent. It just doesn't make sense. The NBA is so rich with talent. It's absurd. And then, to be honest with you, I thought Dame should have won the what am I trying to say here? The MVP award or Steph, because they both were insane, and I thought they put on the show. And I thought it was awesome to see them go at it in my made up scenario of them, the Dame for Steph rivalry. Even though a couple years ago, Steph could have swept the Portland Trailblazers and they didn't. But like I said, I'm just trying to make a little rivalry out of nothing. But hey, you don't know. You know, Dame is from Oakland. I don't know. It's his hometown team. And I thought the All-Star Game was phenomenal. They put on a good show. And now let's talk a little bit about these basketball shows. There's two basketball shows. So if you watch Netflix, there is Last Chance U, which is about junior college kids that, get one more chance at sports because they didn't get a D1 offer or grades or a situation came up. And I haven't started that, but I'm really interested to see that because I'm personally a junior college guy. Actually, I played college football, but I went to junior college. And if you know anything about junior college, any junior college person will tell you junior college is harder than playing at the D1 or D2, D3, NAIA. It's just harder. The kids have nothing. I'm not going to say nothing because they do have stuff, but in California, where I think this one takes place is, and I'll talk about it more on the show the more I watch it. They don't have housing. They don't have meal plans. They don't have scholarships. And if you know as a college student and you don't have any of those things, you're already set back, right? And it's tough. So that's going to be one I'm going to check out, and Last Chance U football is one of my favorite shows. I look forward to it every fall, and I remember during fall camp I would always watch that in between practices, and it's a good show. It's a good show. And you see a bunch of guys go D1 after it, and then you see a lot of them play in the NFL and all that good stuff, and they get the chance. But the show that I started watching, and I watched 5 episodes in one night, was the show with Bronny. It's about the Sierra Canyon basketball team. It's an interesting show because you don't really realize how much stuff goes into high school basketball. You would not think these kids are traveling literally across the country to play basketball. And they're in high school. It almost doesn't make sense. It's called Top Class. It's on Amazon. And they're loaded with talent. BJ Boston, who went to Kentucky. Zaire Wade, who's Dwayne Wade's son, who got hurt. And I'm on the episode where he's got hurt and he's finally coming back and not getting minutes. He ended up going to an academy after he didn't get the D1 offers he wanted. And then Zaire Williams, who went to Stanford, smart kid. But the crazy thing about this show is they have kids in high school that are moving. There's a kid from Boston that moved to LA to play high school basketball. It's crazy to see that now. And obviously the parents want a better education for their kids. And I think he said that, where he went to high school, it wasn't the best high school. And, going to Sierra Canyon is a better education. It's going to set you forward in life and all this good stuff. And it does, better opportunities. But the interesting thing that I want to talk about, and it also Sierra Canyon's alumni is very good. Scottie Pippen Jr., if that name rings a bell. Scottie Pippen played with Michael Jordan and won all those championships. Kenyon Martin Jr. also went there. Kids are both playing at the next level. One is at IMG Academy, I think, and the other one is at Vanderbilt. And Scottie Pippen Jr. is actually a pretty good basketball player. But to get back to the show, I was watching, and they go to school, Monday to Friday. And this was recorded last year pre-COVID, so COVID wasn't a thing yet. But at one point, they had a game in Cleveland, Ohio, where LeBron actually hadn't seen Bronny play yet, and it was one of the first games he's seen him play. And they're actually playing against St. Vincent St. Mary. And Bronny, a sold-out crowd, 18,000 people at this game. Playing against his dad's old school, where his dad's one of the greatest players of all time, probably the greatest player ever in Ohio. Side note, Steph Curry's actually from Ohio as well, Akron, Ohio, to be exact. But his dad went there. Think about that pressure. You're playing in your dad's hometown. You're playing against his high school. LeBron actually bought those jerseys and sponsors that school, and he's playing against them. Can you imagine that pressure? The kid's a freshman. Bronny's a freshman. Can you imagine that pressure? It's absolutely insane. His name is LeBron James Jr. too. He goes by Bronny. But anyway, I want to go back to this travel. Bronny actually ends up winning the MVP of that tournament, and he goes off. He has a great game against his dad's former school, which I thought was awesome. And then so they come back to school, right? Then they go play in Minnesota. And then they play against Suggs, the kid from Gonzaga, who's probably going to be the player of the year this year. They play against him. So the reason they play this schedule is so that they could get the number one ranking in all of in all of high school basketball. I'm sorry. And it's so crazy to see, because these kids go to school, like I said, Monday to Friday. So they're one day, and then they go back to Boston the next week. So let's say in those 3 weeks, they have gone to Boston, they've gone to Minnesota, and they've gone to Cleveland. And they go back to New York. And I'm only on episode, I want to say 4 or 5. And they've already traveled 5 weeks. I don't know how long a high school basketball season, but it can't be longer than, 2 months maybe? In half the season, they've already traveled across the country. They've got more sky miles than, a 21 or 20, a 28 to 30-year-old girl who's got weddings to attend. It's crazy how many sky miles they've got. And they've got all this talent. And Zaire Williams, who's a transfer, he transfers his senior year. He can't play because he transferred. And California has a rule that you have to sit out the first 2 weeks. And he might be the best player on the team. And everyone's coming out to beat these guys. It's a must-see show. It's so good. You've got kids. You've got adults. You've got these. What's so crazy about these kids is they've got 24-hour security on this basketball team. It's a trip. You got to watch the show. It's a good show, and I'm hyping it up. I promise you, I'm not getting paid to talk about it. But I'm a big LeBron guy, so I think Bronny's next. And then there's an interesting kind of a storyline in between all this, because Zaire Wade, who's Dwayne Wade's son, dad's a Hall of Famer, went to Marquette, Jersey's retired everywhere, Chicago guy. I mean, he's Dwayne Wade. He's Flash. Like I said, he's Dwayne Wade. And his son is kind of in that shadow. And you don't know, so far in the show, I haven't seen how good Zaire Wade is. And is he as good as... You got to understand, these kids are playing... They're trying to be their dads. I mean, at the end of the day, their last names are Wade. The last name is James. Like, they have, I mean, it's got to be in your brain. They're human, right? So Wade's son gets hurt at the beginning of the show, and it kind of beats him up a little bit. He was out. I think he tore some ligaments in his ankle, so he was out for a couple of weeks. So he falls out of the lineup, and then he comes back into the lineup, and he doesn't really have a role. He's passing the ball too much. He's passing up open shots. He's just not in rhythm. And then he kind of rides the pine for a little bit. And as Zaire Wade, that kind of takes a toll on you. And you could see on the show that he's trying to get out of his dad's, shadow, or, he's just trying to, but it's tough. And then he gets hurt, and then he goes all this other stuff. It's a good show. You guys got to check it out. It's one of those shows that like I said, I started it last night and I watched 5 episodes. It's one of those shows that you can't turn off. And like I said, go check it out. It's on Amazon. It's a good show. And then Last Chance to You, I'll get to that show. I'm gonna finish this show first. Then I'm gonna get into Last Chance to You. If you've never checked out those shows, check them out. It's great shows. But yeah, it's awesome. It's an awesome story. And like I said, the school is Sierra Canyon. It's a private school here in Los Angeles. Like I said, I'm stationed in Los Angeles, so I think it's pretty cool. It's not down the street, but it's a couple miles from me, and it's like a Hollywood. I guess a lot of these kids, their parents are celebrities, big in the showbiz. They're just big time kids that go to the school, so it's cool to see how some of these kids it's different from where they come from. And check it out. So later on the show, we've got some more PJ Tucker. God, you got to feel bad for the Rockets, man. A couple years ago they were all in, win the championship or bust, and now guys are sitting out. First James Harden, now PJ Tucker. Later on the show, we've got no Duke. They've kind of eliminated themselves from all this. Gonzaga was down big. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Lonzo's shooting, NBA All-Star, was a success. I'll be back. Don't go away after these messages.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite NBA show. We're in the first segment. I talked a little bit about the All-Star Weekend, one of my favorite weekends of them all. Stay tuned for later in the show where we talk some crazy NBA scenarios. We talk about Meyers Leonard. Did he go a little overboard? What's next for him? But in this segment, we want to recap a little NBA basketball back for the second half of the campaign. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Rockets. What is going on with the Rockets, ladies and gentlemen? But let's get to it. Some scores and stats from this week. We've had some good basketball back. It's nice for all the NBA fans to get basketball back. Multiple games a night. There was some good basketball being played tonight. Today we had the Lakers have just beat the Indiana Pacers, but yesterday's games were actually, I thought, really good. Some teams are still getting back in the thick of things. It's All-Star break. Some of them went on vacation, so shooting might be a little low. The Wizards play the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies won handily. The Wizards played the Grizzlies. They beat them handily in the first game back. That was good games. And then yesterday we had the Pistons against the Hornets. The Hornets, oh my God. LaMelo is a star. We had Michael Jordan in the stands. That was awesome to see him in the stands. I think he's finally hit on a draft pick. They have PJ Washington, who's playing great. They're just a fun basketball team. They're my second favorite team to watch in the NBA right now. They're young. They fly around. They play in transition. They're just a good team to watch if they're favored on my league pass. The Hawks against the Raptors. Oh, you got to feel for the Raptors. It might be time for the Raptors to sell. I talked about this on my show last week, where the Raptors are kind of on the verge. Are they sellers? Are they buyers? They gave up a late 3 last night to the Hawks. It was a tough loss, to say the least. Celtics and Nets. Kyrie Irving. Celtics were up by 11 points in the first half. They kind of let go of that. the Nets had a 40 piece from Kyrie. He was in his bag all night. He was possessed tonight. He was killing it. Walking stick Kyrie, as we like to call him. And these are the type of nights that the Nets need from Kyrie. If he could do that, they're going to almost be impossible to beat. The Knicks lost to the Bucks. Are we finding out the cracks? Are we finding out what the Knicks are about? I mean, a huge win for the Bucks. You know, is the book out on the Knicks how to beat them? Julius Randle had 9 points. His first game this season where he scores in single digits. The Timberwolves beat the Pelicans. The Pelicans were up big in the first half. They kind of blew another lead. That kind of shows. I mean, they're a tough team, but you know, a young team like this, they kind of they're going to have lapses like this. And for the Timberwolves, you know, Anthony Edwards is one of those guys who's not getting much talk in the Rookie of the Year. I think he should. I don't know why he isn't, but he's a tough, good player. Love his game. He's someone to look out for in the next coming years he could play. 76ers, no Joel Embiid, no Ben Simmons. They beat the Bulls, but I'm going to talk about the 76ers today. They had a scare with Joel Embiid. This was Friday. This was a Thursday night game where they beat the Bulls handily. The Heat might be back. I've said it. Look out for them. Poor Magic. They're getting beat up. I don't know if they're just a young team that's not very good, but they're really banged up, so you can't really tell if they're good or bad. You know, they could go either way. But the Heat, they're finally getting healthy. They're getting Dragic back. They're getting Jimmy Butler back. This is a team that I have said for the long time, look out for them. They play tough. They go as Jimmy Butler goes, and Jimmy Butler is playing well, and look out. I like them. The Thunder beat the Mavs. No Luka Doncic in a back-to-back. Luka took the night off. I guess that's what they're doing now, taking a 23, taking a night off in back-to-backs. Hey, the Thunder actually just traded Lou Dort. They traded Hami Diallo to the Pistons, so they got another draft pick. Is that 100 draft picks for the Thunder the next 5 years? Jesus Christ. And then we have the Warriors against the Clippers last night. It was one of the first nights where I've seen Steph have some, I don't want to say, was he upset? Did he finally come to terms that he's not playing with LeBron James and Damian Lillard and Luka Doncic? He was a little spoiled in those games, but it was one of those nights. It was one of those things that you see Steph. He usually doesn't show this much, but he showed a lot of emotion to his teammates, and he's really not that type of guy. It honestly surprised me, and I was like, "Whoa, Steph! Can that be some? Did he get used to playing with LeBron? I don't know. I'm just, the show. We just like to speculate a little bit." The Suns beat the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers are just so beat up. If they ever get healthy, they're going to be a tough team. But I feel like this is always the case with the Trailblazers. Is that somebody's always hurt? It's CJ. Dame missed some time a couple years ago. Nurkic down low. Zach Collins, the kid from Gonzaga, he was a great pick. Could he ever be what he was supposed to be? He was a one and done at Gonzaga. I loved his game at Gonzaga. He was a stud, but he's been banged up his whole time in the NBA. And the Suns, another big win for the Suns in second place in the West. Then the Rockets and the Kings. So the Rockets, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Rockets here in a second. How they were one of the best teams in the league, and all of a sudden now they're just, they're the laughing stock of the NBA. The Kings beat them. It doesn't look like they're going to fire Luke Walton or trade. I don't know. I don't know if the Kings are interesting to me, because I almost wonder if they are kind of just playing for, like, to make the playoffs. It almost seems that way. Like, are they just playing? Are they going to be happy just making the playoffs? But we'll see. Oh my goodness! I'm just looking at the score. I was watching this game and I turned it off. The Nuggets against the Grizzlies. Looks like they won by one. Must have been a game winner or just a bad score. I'm looking at the stat line here. Michael Porter 21. That's huge. The Nuggets are an interesting team, because if they can get back to the bubble Nuggets, they're going to be tough to beat. Because in the bubble, they came back from 3-1 in 2 series against the Clippers and against the Utah Jazz. 21 points from Porter Jr., 21 from Barton, who's been banged up. So that's a good sign for them to have him back. The Joker had 15, 7, and 28. Wow. That's a huge night. But Jamal Murray is struggling. I don't know is this a typo here? 32 minutes, 3 points. I was watching this game, and at one point he was 1 for 11 or 1 for 12 from the field. He didn't score, and I was watching it with my dad, and I kind of said, "Oh, he's gonna hit shots when they come down to it." But looks like they didn't. Wow, what a bad. That's a bad loss. That's actually a good win for the Nuggets, though. A tough loss for the Grizzlies. Got to feel for Ja. Oh, that's tough. Cavaliers got blown out. Andre Drummond's on the move. Are they going to trade JaVale? Pelicans seem to bounce back 116-82. 76ers, like I said, they had that's a scare. I'm hoping Joel was just a hyperextension, but that's got to scare. If you're a 76er fan, the type of year Joel is having, oh man, you just hate to see a guy go down like that. Good thing he was walking under his own power. That would be a tough loss for the 76ers, because Joel's been their best player this year. He's in the best shape of his career, I think. He's playing. Oh man, I would hate to see that. They beat the Wizards handily, though. The Miami Heat, I'm trying to tell you guys, jump on the Heat train. Jimmy Butler goes. The Heat go 101-90. Jimmy Butler, 28 points. Wow, that's a huge night. Duncan Robertson, 15. I can imagine how many of those were threes. Goran Dragic, 25, leading the team. Are the Bulls going to trade Lauri Markkanen? Are they going to trade him? Are they going to trade Zach LaVine? He had a 30-piece tonight. I don't know. I think they should be. I've talked about that a little bit earlier. I think teams, I don't get why teams, I'll get into this a little bit later. Then we had the Spurs, another big one. God, the Magic's got a set. Like I said, are they just unhealthy and bad, or are they young and don't really have anything to show? Spurs win again. No LaMarcus Aldridge. And then the Rockets and the Jazz. Jazz won handily, 114-99. And I'm going to dive into the Rockets here in a second. I'm kind of going to do a segment on the Rockets. Rockets are something, like I said, I'm going to do a whole segment on it here in a second. And then we have the Indiana Pacers and the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers were down most of the game and came back late in the fourth quarter, led by Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma had a huge game off the bench. Kyle Kuzma's turned into this great rebounder. His game has had to evolve. He actually led the Lakers in scoring tonight. He had 24 points and 13 rebounds. LeBron had 18 and 3, 10, double-double, 10 assists. But Kuzma's turned into this complete player, and it's awesome to see. Sabonis had 20 points. Brogdon had 29. He missed some tough ones at the end. KCP with a steal to wrap up the game. And their Lakers are still kind of going along. They're going along. Alex Caruso left the game with concussion, but he seems to be hopefully all right. But now let's get into the Houston Rockets. And the Houston Rockets, they were one of those teams that a couple of years ago were a front runner in the NBA for a championship. You remember they made those huge moves to acquire Chris Paul, and then they got Russell Westbrook, and then James Harden needs help. But I was thinking to myself, I was watching the Rockets game earlier, and I was like, who are these guys? Like, who are the Houston Rockets? So I had to come on the roster, and like I said, I'm a big basketball guy. I watch NBA League Pass guy. I didn't know half of these guys. Sterling Brown, he's not even wearing a Rockets uniform in the roster photo. Dante Exum wearing a Cavaliers jersey. Eric Gordon, who's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a growing injury. Can they trade him? Can they get anything for him at this point? 4 to 6 weeks, that's a tough injury. Daniel House Jr., he's made a great career for the Rockets, rejuvenated his career, 3-point shooter. Kuros, he's from the Brooklyn Nets. He's not even wearing the jersey again. Anthony Lamb, Kenyon Martin Jr., a kid that I talked about earlier who went to Sierra Canyon. Ben McLemore, good 3-point shooter. David Nwaba, Victor Oladipo, Justin Patton, Kevin Porter Jr., who they took a risk on, could be good. PJ Tucker, John Wall, and then Christian Wood. So, let me read this list out to you guys. And I'm just going to tell you this team that the Rockets had. I'm going to read off this list and guys that they've let go. CP3, Chris Paul, James Harden, Robert Covington, Austin Rivers, PJ Tucker, Russell Westbrook, Clint Capella. That's a great lineup. Like, they traded all these pieces away because at first it was Daryl Morey. He wanted to play fast. No, shoot all the threes. Analytics are big. Analytics rule the world. Get the ball up and down the court. We want threes, no twos. So him, Daryl Morey, and Mike D'Antoni, they run this offense. They're all for it. The Rockets go all in. They trade Clint Capella, who was a great connection with James Harden, that 1-2 punch. They had PJ Tucker playing the 5. And PJ Tucker is a great defender. All NBA defender, tough nose guy. He wants out. PJ Tucker wants out. That's a guy that I know for a fact he's going to fight and claw to the end. That's kind of what his career has been. He said, I want out. First James Harden this year, now PJ Tucker. What does this tell you about ownership? Like, this ownership, I know it's a new owner. To me, personally, Steven Silas has not got the chance he's want. Like, he has not got a legitimate shot. He hasn't got his opportunity yet. You say, yeah, Eddie, these guys are NBA guys. I hate to say it to you, Christian Wood is a great basketball player. Kevin Porter Jr. could be good. Victor Oladipo could be good, but Victor Oladipo said no thank you. They offered him a huge contract in the middle of the year. They said no thank you. He said no thank you. I'll try my chances in the offseason, but I don't know if I want any of these pieces of this. You're gonna have to pay me more money. Then they tried Boogie Cousins. And Boogie Cousins was one of those guys that it was tough because he's gone through so many injuries, and obviously the Golden State Warriors picked him up. That would have been awesome to see. That didn't work out, and he got in awesome shape. So then I think he tore his ACL or his Achilles. Tore his Achilles, right? Then the Lakers give him a chance. He's looking great. He's looking slim. He's looking in shape. He's looking great. And then he tears his ACL. Let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, Boogie Cousins was a double-double machine, triple-double on any given night. Down to the post, no one could really guard him. He was a bully. He was tough. He was everything you wanted in a big man. And then he kind of, he was a little big at some point, but he was a man. Then he gets hurt, and that always hurts. But get back to the Houston Rockets. What do you do? I'm the GM. I'm the owner. What are we talking about in my office? What are we talking about? Blow it up. Trade Eric Gordon. Obviously, I don't know what you're going to get for him at this point because today, like I said, he's out 4 to 6 weeks. Daniel House, trade him. Get a second round pick. I have a huge issue with teams having these contracts that they're about to expire and they don't trade them. Like, the Rockets aren't going to do anything. What do you need these guys on the roster for? Victor Oladipo doesn't want to be there. Trade him. Get something for him. You could maybe he could help a contender. Will you get a lot for him? I don't know. You'll get you'll get a bag of chips. I'm just kidding. You can get a second round pick for Victor Oladipo. You'll get a solid piece. PJ Tucker, though. This isn't the first guy that wants out. And obviously James Harden and John Wall, they all came to say, if you don't want to be here, don't be here. And that's tough. You got guys on that are quitting on. I wouldn't say quitting on, but they just want a better situation because they kind of see, this isn't going anywhere. And you got to feel for the Houston Rockets fans. And I don't feel for Houston Astros fans because they cheated, but that's for a whole different podcast. But the Houston Rocket fans, you've had Chris Paul and James Harden, Robert Covington, Austin Rivers, PJ Tucker, Russell Westbrook. And last year at one point, they traded for Russell Westbrook. They thought they were getting this guy that, maybe he could come back and help James Harden like they did with the Oklahoma City Boys. Maybe we get the band back together. That didn't go as planned. That was tough, I think, for Russell Westbrook and James Harden. They both thought they were getting something. They didn't really get it. But, hey, they took a shot and they tried it. But, man, Houston, we've got a problem. They didn't capitalize on that window. Everyone always talks about these windows in the NBA as to them being so short, and you're kind of seeing a couple of these windows pass up on some teams. Like, you're seeing the Milwaukee Bucks. Did they pass their window? The Houston Rockets have definitely passed their window. Blow this up. Blow this up. Get picks. Let some of these young guys play. See if Kevin Porter could play. See if Kenyon Martin Jr. could play. It's just tough to see. The NBA, they went all in with Daryl Morey and the guy I feel for most in this, in all of this, believe it or not. I could feel for James Harden. I don't. He's in a great situation now. CP3. Anywhere CP3 has gone, he's won. So it had to be something with him with James Harden. I still don't think they get along very well. I think there's still some bad blood there. Austin Rivers they kind of want him out in New York. But Robert Covington, he's a great piece wherever he goes. Guys love him. And then Clint Capella, getting rid of him, I thought was a huge mistake. And I see what they were trying to do with the threes and run and gun. And people got too happy to see. People try to copy the words a little bit too much. And that sometimes will bite you in the butt. But the guy I hurt for the most is Steven Silas. Because to me, coming into this year, I thought he was going to have. I thought he was going to be the coach of the year. I think he's a great young coach who deserves a legitimate shot. And what he's doing here is not a legitimate shot. This isn't a legitimate shot with this team, with this roster. It would take Greg Popovich and Phil Jackson and Jesus, if you put all these guys together, I don't know if they could win with this team. It's a tough situation, but I think it's time for the Rockets to rebuild, reload. They got to kind of go the Oklahoma City route, get rid of some guys, get draft picks, and blow this puppy up. Houston, we've got a problem. Christian Wood is a good player to build around. He's good. He's young. He's long. He could shoot the ball. He could post up, and he was a late bloomer. But Houston, build around this young cat. Get like I said, get some picks for him. Get some young talent around him. Even if it takes a year or two, that's okay. Coming up on the show, we've had some Lonzo Ball. Why is he shooting lights out? Meyers Leonard, I got some crazy ideas that I've been reading around the NBA. I don't like it. Will they happen? I hope not. And then we're going to talk a little bit about college basketball. Do the refs try to take over games too much? Coming up on the show after this brief message.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the best basketball podcast in the nation. Welcome back, guys. We talked a little bit earlier about some shows you've got to watch, some NBA All-Stars. And then we caught up a little bit with the NBA season, and then I talked about the Rockets mess. Coming up, we still have some quirky rules that they want to, that I've been reading. We'll see if they come along, and then I'm going to give you again, some of my top moments of this week. But first, let's talk a little March Madness, Meyers Leonard. And so I want to touch a little bit on this Meyers Leonard thing, and I don't want to get too deep on it. So he had kind of a little bit of an incident this week where he was playing Call of Duty. And for a lot of you guys that have never played Call of Duty is a war game that a lot of anger comes out, and you get kids of all ages. Sometimes some kids are too young, but it's, it's kind of what your parents let you do. But kids are from, the age of, maybe 7 or 8 years old to grown men with families, and they play this game, and sometimes things get intense, to say the least, and you get killed by somebody sniping. And the guy that killed him, I guess, was sniping. And in the game of Call of Duty, you've got gamers that kind of just sit in corners or camp in bushes, and they kind of wait for you. And I'm explaining this for the people that have never heard of Call of Duty, don't know what happened, but I want to explain to you, give you guys a picture of how it goes down. So they have they call them campers or snipers, and they basically just sit out, and if you cross their line of vision, they get you. You're out of the game, gulag, whatnot. So a lot of these big-time NBA guys have now been streaming themselves on Twitch or their own platforms, whatnot. So Meyers Leonard, he's been banged up this year. He's injured. He plays this game, right? And like I said, this game does bring anger out in you. But there comes a time and point where you've kind of got to watch what you say, because they are live mics. He knew he was streaming this. So a lot of these NBA guys have been streaming themselves play video games. As crazy as that sounds, it's the huge thing right now. Esports is huge. It's blowing up. And now, especially with quarantine, a lot of these guys were at home kind of just playing video games. But he was on Twitch, and he said something he really wasn't supposed to say. And Meyers Leonard it's been a little touchy with Meyers. And I don't want to get political on the show or anything like that, but I just wanted to touch bases on it. Meyers Leonard, as a lot of NBA guys, took the knees. His brother's in the military, so he didn't take the knee. He respects the military, he said. And a lot of people are saying, Meyers, what are your senses? Like, what's going on? So he was playing this video game, and he said something along the lines against the Jewish community. And it's one of those things that you never want to hear come out of anybody's mouth. Like I said, it's tough because he knows he's got a hot mic. He knows it's not even a hot mic. He knows he's streaming. And I'm just trying to get a thought for words on this, because I've been thinking about this, and I have Jewish friends, and I texted my Jewish friends about it, and I was like, what is it? And I think, Meyers is kind of educating yourself is one thing, but then saying something is another thing. And that's, I think, one of those words that you just don't really say. I'm sorry. And it's going to be tough because we're going to see what happens here with Meyers, because the Miami owner is Jewish. Miami has a huge population of Jewish folks in Miami. He got fined $50,000. He's banned from facilities and all team activities for a week. So, like I said, he apologized. He came out and an apology. I promise to do better. And I know that my future actions will be more powerful than my use of this word. Meyers, I think it's going to be tough. Like I said, he's been banged up with injury this year, so he hasn't been with the team very much. He's, coming off an All-Star break. Adam Silver said, we accept that he is genuinely remorseful. They've talked to Meyers about it. Like I said, I don't want to dive too deep into it. He got a $50,000 fine. I think the bigger thing about this is how he's going to be perceived with the Miami fan base, ownership. Because, like I said earlier, they were they're Jewish. So, and Call of Duty is one of those games that I myself play Call of Duty, and I got to be careful with what I say here. just because it's one of those games that could really get you going. And I'm not at all defending Meyers, and you should never, personally, I don't think it should ever get to that point. And it's kind of, it's the world we live in now. You're live streaming on a video game. You just plain out got to be smarter. I mean, there's no and if or buts about that. You're streaming, and you're an NBA guy. Kids are watching. Everything you say is under a microscope. It's just tough. It's just something I don't think he should have done. I mean, I think if even him, he would want to take it back at this point. But I thought the best part about that, I don't think there's nothing good about that. But Julian Edelman, he's come out about it a couple times. He's he's reached out to people before about this, and he had an open letter, and he kind of reached out as like a fellow athlete, a fellow friend, and I think he said, we've never met. I hope we can one day. I'm sure you've been getting a lot of criticism for what you said, and not trying to add to that. I just want to offer some perspective. I get the sense you didn't use the word out of hate, more out of ignorance. Most likely, you weren't trying to hurt anyone or even profile Jews in your comment. That's what makes it kind of worse, I would say. I think that's what Julian's trying to say here. And I kind of, and I think I wish there was more of this, to be honest with you, because Julian Edelman said, I'm down in Miami a fairly amount of time. Let's do a Shabbat dinner with some friends. I'll show you a fun time. And that, to me, was a lot. A guy reaching out, and I feel like if there's more of that, because sometimes you just don't know how you affect somebody until you really affect somebody, and I think this is kind of a wake-up call for Meyers, hopefully. Julian Edelman, take a huge... That takes a lot from a guy, and I think that's good for guys to educate themselves and kind of, like I said, educate them. That's kind of the biggest thing I think in the point that I'm trying to make here. And Meyers Leonard, we'll see what happens in the next coming days with that. So let's get on back to basketball and more basketball news. We have Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball, believe it or not. So if I told you that Lonzo Ball was out shooting Devin Booker, has made more threes than Devin Booker, what would your reaction be? Oh, you're lying to me, man. In what world is that true? Hey, he's doing it. If I told you Lonzo Ball has made more threes than Trae Young, what would you tell me? Oh, no, man. You're joking. You're joking with me. If I told you Lonzo Ball had more threes than Luka Doncic to step back Luka Magic, what would you say? Oh, no, man, you're kidding me. He's up on Luka, 87. Luka has 87 threes. Lonzo has 99 as of a couple days ago. And I think he made a couple of they've played 2 ball games. He's made more threes than LeBron James. LeBron James is a good shooting 3-point. His 3-point shot has come a long way. But Lonzo Ball, he's an interesting character, man. The Lakers took him second overall out of UCLA, out of Chino Hills. And all that stuff with LeVar Ball. The kid has had it so... And at some point, you got to feel for the kid. You really do. If you don't like his dad, that's one thing. But I think the best thing that's happened to Lonzo Ball is LaMelo Ball. He's kind of woken him up, smell the roses. Your brother might be better than you. This is who we thought Lonzo was going to be at UCLA and Chino Hills. They kind of ran the show. He played fast, and sometimes Lonzo looks a little slow. He looks a little bit out of pace. He looks out of rhythm. You kind of sometimes wonder if he's even engaged. But this year he's averaging 14 points. 5 assists, one steal. We always knew he was a good defender. That's one thing you can't say about Lonzo. He's always been a good defender. Shooting 38% from 3-point land. He shoots 7 a game. He makes 3 a game. That's not bad. for a guy that, has kind of a quirky shot. He's attempted, he's always I'm looking at his stats now. First couple years, he attempted 5. Now he's attempted 7. Last year, he attempted 6. So he's shooting the ball more, which is good. And he's making them more. And I think that was one of the kind of the knocks on Lonzo was, has he got any better? And, in his 4th year in the NBA, I mean, he's a young cat. He only spent 1 year at UCLA. And you kind of were like, man, when are we going to see this Lonzo Ball that was advertised at UCLA and at Chino Hills, and we've kind of been waiting for it. And I think his brother coming into the league might have given him a spark, because everyone's talking about LaMelo Ball now, and no one's really talking about Lonzo Ball. It's his contract year. He declined the offer from the New Orleans Pelicans, so that was interesting, right? That was he kind of bet on himself. I guess they didn't give him the money he wanted. He bet on himself. Come back another year and fight. So yeah, that's Lonzo Ball. He's shooting the ball well. Good for him. He's make a little bit of money. I think he's like I said, he's always been a good defender. The offensive game is kind of what's going to see how that comes along. I want to get on some storylines that I've been reading. I read every night before I go to bed. I read it every morning when I wake up. And I saw this crazy headline. Do you manage the amount of 3-pointers the team shoots? How would that go? And then I read somewhere also, say his team could shoot only 23s, let's say 33s in the first 3 quarters, but in the last 6 minutes you can shoot as many as you want. So the 3-point shot, the evolution of the 3-point shot has been pretty crazy. There was early guys like Reggie Miller, we haven't, and then we see a guy like Steph Curry made a career out of it. Best 3-point shooter of all time. The game has slowly evolved. Like I talked about in an earlier segment, the Houston Rockets went all about that. They went no 2s. I only want 3s. What do we do? So I thought about that, and I kind of just put my phone down for a second, and I was just like, what would that be like? You've got all these players now that are stretch forwards. You have to shoot. If you're a big guy, centers, you have to be able to shoot 3s. You've got to be able to stretch the floor for the guys, it's crazy. Brook Lopez now is a lethal shooter from behind the arc. You can't leave that guy open. He'll kill you. And I was thinking about it. What if they don't let you shoot 3s, or you only got to shoot 20? And the first thing that I thought about was like in softball, competitive softball. I don't know if any of the listeners play competitive softball, but in some tournaments you have. This is the only comparison I could make to it. Sometimes you could only hit like 10 home runs a game. And in softball, you're thinking, if you've never played competitive softball, you're like thinking like, oh my God, that's so many home runs. But sometimes these guys are huge, and a lot of them just hit home runs, and you kind of have to place the ball in certain places. So you can only hit 10 home runs, and if you hit a home run after that, it's like an out, or they take a run away, crazy stuff like that. So I was thinking, what would the NBA do? What would the NBA be like? And my answer is like, I don't know. I don't know of a NBA now where guys aren't shooting 3s. And I don't know. And I think I like shooting. I love scoring. I've always been a guy that likes teams to score as many points as they absolutely can, as quirky as it is. And I don't know if this was just for noise, but I thought it was funny. I really thought it was funny. I think it's a terrible situation. I think the more 3s, the better. Obviously, like I said, there was a game earlier this year that I was watching, and I talked about on my first episode, where there was a fast break and a team had numbers. They had 4-on-1 on a fast break, and usually the guy runs with the ball in the middle, then the 3 guys kind of fill the lanes, and one of them cuts to the basket, they make a 3. And this was to win a game, and all 3 guys ran behind the 3-point line. It was the Denver Nuggets. They ended up losing the game. Contested 3. It was terrible. I mean, coach was pissed after the game. But I was thinking, like, what would they do if they managed 3-point shots? And I think it's a terrible rule. I think the NBA is almost even going more to it. They want guys to shoot more. And I think we're closer to the NBA making a 4-pointer than, as crazy as that sounds. Crazy Eddie. This is a show where you'll get the craziest takes in the world. I take my shots. But I think we're closer to a 4-point shot than them limiting the amount of threes you take. Because guys like Steph, Dame, I mean, LeBron's game has even come a long way. And what's the knock on Giannis is he can't shoot. Even Giannis wants to shoot, in the All-Star game, he banked a couple of threes in. We're seeing guys like Trae Young, Luka Doncic, who's not, like Lonzo Ball, who I just talked about, JJ Redick, who've made a career off of this, Duncan Robinson, who's another guy who's made a career off this, Bertans, he's made a career off this, made a ton of money. Joe Harris has got paid a lot of money. So you're paying a lot of money for these guys to shoot threes, and then you want to take it away from them? I don't. I'm not a big fan. I say keep the 3-pointer, keep them coming, let them rain. I would even, like I said, I think we're closer to a 4-pointer than we are taking it away. How cool would that be, though? A 4-pointer? Because I was watching the Laker game tonight, and the Pacers were down by 4. Like, if you're the Lakers, do you foul them, so it turns into a possession game, or do you, like, kind of play it out? But if you have a 4-pointer, you pull up from a couple feet behind the 3-point line now, and it's tie ball game. I don't think we're going to be there. That's kind of like I don't know. That's not going to, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. 3-pointers, and it's crazy because back in the day, the old-fashioned 3-pointer, you get fouled, get to the line, and those days are done, obviously. But yeah, think about that for a second. What would, if you limit maybe 23s in a game? Teams are shooting 53s now. And another thing I read was the NBA's got, in the All-Star game, they did a dedication to Kobe where you have to score 24 points at the final quarter. And that'd be something to think about, right? Because so many teams now are fouling guys, and it's sometimes the reviews and all that. And I'll talk about now. I have a segment coming up on reviews and late in games because there was a college basketball game 2 nights ago, I want to say, that the last minute took 20 real minutes. And I'll talk about that here in a second. I'll talk about that in my last segment, so tune in. But check out this. So you play 3 quarters, right? Whatever the score is, that team has to catch up to you. So say you have 100 points, right? Say you have 100 points, the other team has 90 points. Just say, going into the fourth quarter, that home team or that winning that the team that has 100 points, winner to 124. I think that would add some efficiency because a lot of times some teams dribble the clock out and there would be no dribbling the ball out. You kind of have to play in a sense, right? You kind of have to go for it. And the team that's down has to obviously come back, score those 10 points, and then score that 24. So you're scoring 34 points in the team. If you're ahead, it's obviously nicer, if you're ahead. But think about the teams that are tied going in overtime, first to 24 points. It's a lot more strategy. Think about it. As crazy as it sounds, I was reading about this, and it wasn't. I was like, I like this. I honestly wouldn't mind it. Think about every possession is like a last possession in a sense because you can't let the other team score basically. And in a sense, sometimes you're playing against a clock in some games. But think about if you're playing against you've got the last point wins, kind of like on the blacktop, when you're a kid. Last point wins, best of 24. I don't know. It's a food. I think you've got to think about it, and it could be fun. And it's just what goes around. My mind thinks crazy, and I read about this. So I was like, this could be awesome. Can this get more fans? Because some ratings are a little low for the NBA. I was reading the other day. I don't know. It could be fun. A tribute to Kobe, too. I don't know. Could be fun. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think. That'd be, you put that little seed in your head. Tell me what you think. And coming up on the show, ladies and gentlemen, we've got March Madness. The team I told you to look out for, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Look out. The Oklahoma State Cowboys making some noise. Knocked out number 1 Baylor. Coming up on the show. Stay locked in, ladies and gentlemen.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on my last segment of today's podcast, where I'll be talking a little bit of March Madness. Earlier, we talked about shows you've got to check out in the basketball world. We talked a little Meyers Leonard, and then the All-Star break, how that all went down. But let's get into this March Madness, and it has been madness to say the least. Today, the Baylor Bears, the number 1 seed in the Big 12 tournament, fall to Oklahoma State. And if you watched my show, if you heard my show, my first episode, I talked about the Oklahoma State being a scary basketball team. Cunningham may very well be the number 1 pick in next year's draft. The kid is special. He could score at every level. He makes the guys around him better. He's NBA ready. There's not many knocks on him. He's a gamer. He plays hard. He's a tough cookie. Tough cookie. Then we had today, my USC Trojans had a tough loss against the Colorado Buffaloes. I'm sorry. That was a tough one. Another team I said to watch, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Look out for them. They beat Missouri. And then a big stunner in the Pac-12. The Oregon Ducks lose to rivals Oregon State Beavers. That was a tough one for the Ducks. I think they'll be able to get in. They'll be able to get into the dance, but that's a tough loss for them. Good games coming up. We got Ohio State against Michigan tomorrow. That's going to be a dandy, 10 a.m. for all my West Coast people. It's going to be an early one. Alabama, Tennessee's one to watch. That's going to be a good one. Arkansas, LSU, I still got my Razorbacks. I still have them going strong. Oklahoma State against Texas, that's going to be a good one. Florida State, Georgia State, I think Georgia Tech. I think Florida State's a good basketball team. They're really well coached. They've got good leadership. They've played tough. Good team. Look out for them. Iowa Garza might be the best. Like I said, he might be one of the best players in college basketball. Look out for him. And it's only getting better, ladies and gentlemen. Right now we've got the tournaments, the tournaments of the per section, and we don't have the big announcement isn't coming up soon, and that's always fun. Selection Sunday. That's always, you can't wait to see that. And then we got all my people that are going to fill out their brackets. I'm going to tell you guys who to pick, who not to pick. I'll bring that up on a podcast later in time. It's one of those things that I've won 2 years in a row, and you never really know who to pick. But I'll give you my keys, and I'll give you a slight edge on who I think. And the way I usually pick is whoever has the best shooters, snipers, and the most NBA talent. That's my big formula. NBA talent and shooting. And I want to touch a little bit about this. But at first, let me get back. It's the officiating. College officiating. I need to get to this. But first I want to talk about, it's tough for Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks. They've been eliminated, or they haven't been eliminated in the Virginia due to COVID. And this year's been one of those years where I talked about earlier, where I said, whatever team manages the best way is going to go the farthest. That was kind of my formula this year for college basketball. Whatever team has the best formula to keep their guys healthy, because you got to remember, these kids are 18, 19-year-old kids, 20-year-old kids that, at some point they want to have their college experience, but it's one of those years where they, you've got to kind of be the tough coach or the tough, AD and be like, not this year. It's too much on the line. And for Kansas, they kind of bit the bullet here, and they're, we're going to see if they get, though they're probably going to get in, it's tough, but they were playing good basketball, but I think they have to test negative 7 straight days in order to best case scenario for them. But I want to get into this college basketball officiating. College basketball officiating to me is, I want to be the nicest way possible to talk about bad officiating. And let me, I have my notes here, and it messes up the game. Yes, the other day, I talked about it earlier. There was a game in the last minute. It took 20 real minutes with reviewing. And reviewing was supposed to be one of those things that came in, and it was supposed to help everybody. It was supposed to make things easier for everybody. It was supposed to, help these refs. It's supposed to make the game faster. But it's honestly made the games longer. In college basketball, I like college basketball. I like to see the young guys, dive on the floor. And I'm lying to you guys. I don't like to see that. I don't. I really don't. I'm a big NBA guy, but I like to see the college effect that the guys are, running around. It's more, do I want to say normal, or, they're more, these guys that are in the NBA, they don't miss. So to see a college guy, maybe not be able to make a three or struggle or, not be able to box out. I mean, I guess it's, not my cup of tea, but I still watch it. I'm still a fan of the sport. I like the game of basketball. I like to see the young guys who are going to be good at the next level. But the refs absolutely kill it. They kill it. There's no way around it. It almost seems like I turn on a game now, and it seems like every team is trying to put it, blocker charge. Every team is falling down. The other day I wasn't sure if I was watching a European soccer game or a college basketball game. Everybody was falling on the floor. Floppers. Trying to get foul calls. Play the game of basketball. Put the ball in the basket. Set screens. Don't flop. And I know the NBA is bad with flopping, but at least the refs sometimes are a little bit better, but college officials, and I love March Madness. I really do. I love March Madness. And I watch a lot of the games, but some of these refs, I proposed a rule a couple years ago where I said they should bring in NBA officials for the Final Four. To Elite Eight, but for the Final Four, you've got to bite your whistle. You can't call fouls sometimes. In the playoffs, NBA refs in the playoffs, they bite their whistle. It's you kind of know that. That's why James Harden struggles sometimes in the postseason. Guys that look for fouls, the teams that don't look for fouls necessarily could play without a whistle, end up going a little bit farther than most teams that look for whistles. And I just hope that this college game, and I don't know what would make things better, but fishing has to get better. It really does. It messes up the flow of the game. Then they review everything. Then they, was he a foul? Was it not a foul? Who was it off of? And they've got to turn this around. I hope we don't see much of it in the tournament, because it honestly messes up rhythms. It messes up the game. It messes up the flow. It's just not fun. I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan. Let's jump back into the NBA world. We've got some exciting stuff that's coming up this week. Chris LeVert, who's actually a hell of a basketball player, is back for the Indiana Pacers. He didn't play tonight against the Lakers, but he's back tomorrow night, or tonight, or however you want to see it. It's interesting with Karis LeVert, I'm sorry. If he doesn't get traded, do they find that? Do they find that issue? And it's crazy how you could either say the world works or how things happen for a reason. But if that doesn't happen, you almost don't even want to think about what it could have been, right? It's scary. It's scary, the thought that, I don't want to it's scary because that's real life stuff. And of course, basketball is real life stuff, but sometimes health, and family and all this other stuff is more important. And that's one of those things that was scary. And he's a hell of a basketball player. He's going to help out the Indiana Pacers. He was great player for the Nets, and he kind of played that, Manu Ginobili role for the Suns for the Nets and Steve Nash. So I think that's going to be a great addition for them. They lost to the Lakers tonight. I think they were careless short of winning that game. But I want to talk to you guys a little bit about if I have the last shot in an NBA game, if I have 4 seconds left on the shot clock, who has the shot? Not even 4 seconds. Let's go 0.6. So it's a catch and shoot. Who am I taking? James Harden? Kevin Durant? Obviously Kevin Durant if he's healthy. James Harden? Luka? Jamal Murray? Devin Booker? There's so many good names, so many great closers. Ja Morant? Joel Embiid? You don't want Ben Simmons. You want him passing, inbounding the ball. Kyle Kuzma, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Pandemic P, Playoff P. Who do you want taking that last shot? So I've got a top 3 and healthy. I'm going to go with healthy, and then I'm going to go with guys that are not healthy too, so I'm going to go with number 3. I'm actually going to give you my honorable mentions. If KD was healthy, he's 100% on this list. He's cold-blooded. He's a killer. So let's do that. He's a killer. These are my honorable mentions. Devin Booker, honorable mention. Steph Curry. Is he an honorable mention or is he in my list? He's an honorable mention, and I'll tell you why. James Harden, honorable mention. Not on my list. He's not on my top 3. He's not a playoff guy. He's not a last second guy. He's more of a, give it to him at the end of a possession, but come last shot, I don't know if I want him to take it. Kyrie Irving's an interesting one, but he's an honorable mention as well. He's a hell of a basketball player. Just not obviously he won a championship for LeBron and the Cavs. But here are my top 3. Jamal Murray, Bubble Murray, I would give it to him, but he had 3 points tonight. He's been struggling, to say the least. Jimmy Butler, that's another good one. Bradley Beal, another good one. There's some good ones out there. But my top 3, Donovan Mitchell, another good one. I'm going to go with Luka Doncic at number 3. No. Check that. Number 3, I'm going LeBron James. LeBron James, he's known for making that pass at the end of games. And a lot of people give him a lot of tough love for making that pass. But sometimes you get double teamed and that's kind of the look you want. But when he gets that last look, it's usually a good look and he kind of finds separation. He hits a lot. He's made a lot more game-winning shots than people actually give him credit for. And he's the top of a lot of lists. He's made more game-winning clutch shots than Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. He's made more than Michael Jordan in crunch time. And believe it or not, check the stats, ladies and gentlemen. As much as, crunch time. For number 2, I'm going to go Luka. I don't know what it is about Luka, but he's kind of one of those guys that likes putting on shows, and I'm all for it. And it almost seems that like the bigger the moment, the more Luka shows up. I don't know what it is about Luka. He likes to get to that elbow 3, step back, spin. I don't know. He likes that deep shot. Sometimes he had one in the bubble, then he had one in the regular season this year. He had one his rookie year, that famous one against the Portland Trailblazers, where that kind of put him on the map. I've always been a Luka guy, and I think he's not afraid of the moment. He's been a pro since he was like in diapers. The guy has been making tough shots forever. I'm going to go Luka too. And then the coldest dude I got. I think you guys all know who it is. And if he's not on top of your list, you're lying to yourself. You're going to say Steph this. Damian Lillard, Oakland, California, make some noise. Damian is a baller, shot caller. Dame doesn't get enough credit. First of all, he doesn't get enough credit for what he does. He's always playing. He plays, a lot of guys, his team's been banged up the last couple of years. And does Dame have to be better in the playoffs? 100%. Does Dame have to take that next step to be a superstar? 100%. But he's one of the most underrated players in this NBA, the NBA has in general, because he doesn't get much love. He's kind of under the radar up there in Portland. No one really talks about him that much. But in a last-second scenario, 0.6 seconds, there is no one in the NBA that I would rather have the ball with. No one. And I think that from Dame to Luka, it's a huge margin. And he's just special when it comes down to the line. And I'm going to take some heat for not putting Steph in there. And that's okay. I like Steph. Steph has grown on me a lot. Believe it or not, if I was on this show maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, there wouldn't be much Steph talk on this show. But Steph is a hell of a shooter. He's more of a rhythm guy. Shimmy. Steph is not. I hope no one takes this bite and kind of cues it up and says that spins this the wrong way. Steph is a hell of a shooter, but I don't want him taking my last shot. I don't. I want him taking shots in first, second, third, late for fourth quarter, but not my last second shot. That's a whole different shot. I think it's a whole different mindset. And like I said, Dame time is just special. Dame, like I said, he doesn't get enough credit for it either. That's kind of the part that bums me out about Dame is he's under the radar. But that's okay. So we have another thing that I want to talk about here is Duke. Duke basketball. What's the problem with Duke? Duke kind of took themselves out of the March Madness this year, and they weren't going to make it anyway. I don't think they weren't good enough this year. But Duke, Coach K was doing a lot of whining for me this year, and that's not Coach K to me. It kind of set me back a bit because I put Coach K he said we shouldn't be playing during the pandemic, and I think it was more of an excuse for Coach K. And Coach K, I put him in the same conversation as Coach Pop, Phil Jackson. They're the best at what they do. They're the best. And for him to come out and say we shouldn't be playing during the pandemic when your team is going through a tough stretch, I didn't like that at all. And they've kind of pulled themselves out of this because of a COVID test, because of positive COVIDs, and that you can't argue with that. That's what it is. But Duke to me is one of my favorite teams. They're always there in March. But I think a little bit of the blame has to go on Coach K. And a lot of people don't want to put those on these legends, but Coach K had to be better this year for that team. This is the year where they kind of had to, put their coaching really had to step up. Coach K, Coach Calipari from Kentucky, they didn't do a good enough job. That's what I think the bottom line is with these programs. They didn't do a good enough job, bottom line. They've got to be able to coach these young cats and make them better. That's obviously the job of a coach, but they didn't do that this year. And that's unlike them. Too many excuses. Like I said, from Coach K, I didn't like that at all. Don't tell me because you hit a tough stretch, you shouldn't be playing basketball. That's Bush League. I don't want to hear that. You're not the only team going through COVID. Everyone went through it. Everyone's had the same circumstances. Some teams took some time off. I didn't like that, Coach K. We got to be better. If you want to come on my show and talk about why you said those things, you're more than welcome to come on my show, Coach K. Coach K is always welcome. Thank you, guys. Earlier we talked about NBA All-Star break, how awesome that was. The guys put on a show. Guys stretching the floor as far as they can. That was awesome to see. NBA needed something like that for TV. I thought it was good. Dunk contest wasn't great. Skill challenge was fun. The big guys won it. And then Steph put on an absolute clinic from the 3-point line. Guys, check out those basketball shows I talked about. Last Chance U is awesome. I'll talk about it. I'll be talking about it more and more on my show. It's a good one. Then the Bronny Sierra Canyon one, check that one out on Amazon. We talked a little bit about Meyers Leonard and what he could do better. We got to be better. And we talked a little bit about my top 3 guys who I want to take my final shot. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the show tonight. So good spending time with you guys. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Great rest of your weekend. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be listening to me. Thank you. Tune in again. Have a great day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.